Donna Zakowska, costume designer for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. The fifth and final season jumps forward in time through the decades, the 80s and 90s. So what was your reaction when Amy Sherman-Palladino told you about these flash forwards?
Well, I had a feeling something might be coming, but I was still a little bit shocked, because we were, so much had this image of Midge and who she was and her clothing, that, it did take a sort of a moment, of my talking to Rachel and just having a sense of, where this character is going to go. And I mean, it was fun, but it was also, it meant for us that now we were going to be departing, from the series, and endings are never like your favorite thing. So, it was something really we had to sort of tackle emotionally, I think, a little bit, especially for Rachel, who really took it extremely seriously.
Yeah, because throughout the entirety of the series, Midge is chasing stardom, and we see in the future that she does become a huge star. So how do you dress her for that type of success that we only see in patches in the future? Like we still see her wearing like her shades of pink and red, but it's you reintroduce it in a different way.
Well, I think also it isn't just, I mean, as you begin to move forward, the 50s and early 60s is such a sort of, flamboyant and like sort of very sort of enthusiastic clothing period. So as you begin to get into the 80s, 70s and 80s, it's difficult to find that same element, but you want to be consistent with the character. So it was a little bit of a challenge in a way. It's definitely about pulling back. It's definitely about being more of a minimalist, because I think after, the 70s was, not minimal, but then when you hit the 80s and 90s, so you really have to question the moment, you have to question the period, and you have to try to make it credible, because I mean, here you are dealing with one actress, and some really a lot about the makeup and aging the person, but trying to always sort of capture the essence of who that character is. You never want to lose them just because you're changing periods. So, I think it's always about instinct. I always say this, everything is about your instinct in a way. And I really tend to trust my instinct. And when you're working with someone like Rachel, who is also a very instinctual person, you find the journey, and you find that path. The journey just speeded up much more than we thought it was going to happen. So,
is there one of the outfits in the future timelines that was particularly challenging?
I don't think it, I think it wasn't particularly challenging, but I think like there's certain, outfits, like when she visits her husband in prison, and like how you want to, in a way, sort of do something that has a sort of sedate quality, but again, you don't want to lose the character. I think the challenge is more the bigger picture. The challenge is more about her, spirit, naivete, innocence, and sort of just, bringing that to those individual periods. And I think it's like a bigger issue, really, than just a specific costume. Certainly the prison one was a little bit of a challenge, was how to make that boring, interesting 80s, all at the same time. 80s not being my favorite period, I admit to this, although there were some great things that happened, but yeah.
Well, in the second episode, back in 61, she starts her job at the Gordon Ford Show as a writer, and it's a whole plot point of how she needs to pick a sitting outfit instead of a standing outfit for work, and Susie ends up picking this outfit for her, and this gorgeous flowing flared red plaid skirt, and it's like this cute little jacket and a cap. So how did you design that outfit for, like, how do you know that was the right one? And there's like a whole chase sequence too through a train later.
No, I know. I think, in a way I was a little bit lucky there in that I had that sort of feeling about this outfit, and it wasn't even quite reinforced yet. I didn't realize that this was going to be as big a journey. I didn't realize she was going to be running around the streets, but I had this idea of what I called, like, the red sailor, and so this was like her journey into the future and the other world, and then found this sort of fabulous fabric, and somehow it all sort of came together with the scenes. But I think when I designed it, was just about an instinct about how I thought this costume should work. And then as it evolved, and suddenly you see her running through the subway and sitting on the stairs and swirling around. But wow, I felt a bit lucky at that moment, that, because there's never time, that somehow that had, mentally sort of come together in that way. Whole thing about a sitting costume versus, that was something that came a little bit later in the script. It wasn't initially there when I designed the costume.
Interesting.
A little bit of luck.
It was because of your design.
Yes.
Well, I did notice that during the subway chase scene, none of the other passengers are wearing red. Like, she's the only one in red.
Well, after, I made that decision, okay, she's going to be this, as I said, the red sailor, the red sort of phantom running around in the subway. Then you have to, really, clearly say to yourself, nothing else is going to compete with that. This is going to be, a very strong visual moment. And then you use everything to reinforce that. I mean, that's the importance of extras, the importance of people that, the actors that are surrounding the principals.
In the fourth episode, we get to see Midge in a garbage man's uniform, because she does this industrial show, this musical. It's super frumpy, it's green, and it's originally meant for a man. It was fun seeing her not in really gorgeous coats and dresses. So what was it like designing that?
Well, in a funny way, like, we really love that. I liked it. Rachel loved that costume. People were really like, wow, this is, an amazing sort of coverall. I sort of based it on a 1940s coverall I had actually found. But I loved, the fact that it had a sort of practically Charlie Chaplin-esque quality to it. Because for me, Midge at her best is always attractive, beautiful, but there's always like this great sort of comic streak that is a part of the costume. And so, of course, of course, with something like that, which is really a coverall that is oversized and the crazy little hat, it sort of allowed that aspect that is always like some component of who the character is to really, come to the forefront. And I love those sort of clothes, actually, those, sort of crazy half clown, half real people.
Yeah, because it's like, it's silly, and the whole musical was silly. So
yeah. Yes, that's one way to describe it.
Well, lastly, it's the final season. So what was it like when you finished the last design for the series?
I think that, I've never been involved with the project this long. A little bit John Adams, that took about 3 years, but I had never been. So I think it was very hard for us to say, this is the last. Okay, so this is the last costume you're going to have. It wasn't just about the costume. It was about the fitting. It was about the great sort of interaction that I had with Rachel as an actress, and, sort of our excitement every time we created a new costume and had a new journey or a new feeling or a new idea. So I think, when we suddenly realized, wow, I guess this isn't going to happen again. It was more like the curtailment of the activity than actually the costume.
It's like, this is our last time in the fitting room. Yeah.
For me, in a way. Yeah, it's a very odd thing. I've never felt that before. So it was interesting. Yeah.
Well, Donna, it was great speaking with you. Thanks so much for your time. Obviously back here in a little bit.
Okay, great. Thank you.